Hayun pressed herself against the wall as three Vrelian diplomats walked past, their chittering conversation filling the narrow corridor. They didn't notice her. They never did. She waited until their insectoid forms disappeared around the corner before continuing to the cafeteria on level 7 of the Terran Communications Hub. It was 2157, and Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years. Humans worked alongside dozens of alien species in massive buildings that touched the clouds. Hayun had worked here for 4 years as a data analyst. In all that time, perhaps 5 people had learned her name. She collected her lunch tray and scanned the crowded room. Every table was full. At one, a group of human technicians laughed loudly. At another, luminary energy beings pulsed with light as they shared stories. Hayun spotted an empty chair at a table near the back. She walked over quietly. "Is this seat taken?" She asked the Korthan warrior sitting there. He looked right through her, then turned back to his meal. Hayun stood there for a moment, then walked away. She found a spot on the floor near the recycling units and ate alone. The food tasted like nothing. Back at her desk, Yoon stared at streams of data flowing across her screens. This was where she belonged, not with people, but with patterns. Numbers didn't ignore her. Sequences didn't pretend she wasn't there. She had a gift for finding order in chaos, connections where others saw randomness. Her supervisor, a human man named Seok, walked past without looking at her. He stopped at the desk behind hers where Mina sat. Mina was bright and loud, and everyone loved her. "Great work on that solar flare prediction," Seok said warmly. "You're really going places." Hayun had actually solved that prediction. She'd left the solution on Mina's desk, with a note explaining the pattern. Mina had presented it as her own work. Hayun didn't blame her. That's just how things were. The afternoon dragged on. Hayun processed reports, cleaned datasets, and filed everything properly. At 6 o'clock, everyone else left for drinks. Hayun stayed until 8, then took the train home to her tiny apartment. She heated instant noodles and watched old movies until she fell asleep on the couch. The next morning started the same. Hayun arrived early, made coffee no one thanked her for, and settled at her desk. Then the alarms began. Red lights flashed throughout the building. Everyone rushed to their stations. Hayun pulled up her screens and saw chaos. Every satellite, every deep space sensor, every listening post humanity owned was screaming the same thing. Something impossible had appeared at the edge of the galaxy. "What is that?" Someone shouted. Hayun watched as data poured in. It was enormous, bigger than a moon. It had appeared from nowhere, breaking every law of physics. And it was transmitting dot. The signal was like nothing in any database. Complex, layered, beautiful. Alien linguists were already arguing about it. AI systems crashed trying to decode it. Mathematical models failed. The pattern made no sense. But Hayun saw something. She couldn't explain it, but there was a rhythm buried in the noise. A familiar rhythm. She started pulling the data apart, isolating frequencies, mapping repetitions. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Hours passed. The building filled with officials and alien dignitaries. The Galactic Council was convening an emergency session. Everyone was frightened. When something this powerful appeared, civilizations died. Hayun barely noticed. She was deep in the pattern now. It was speaking to her, showing her something. The signal wasn't random. It was structured, mathematical. And somehow, impossibly, it contained a sequence that matched her own neural pattern. The way her brain processed information. The unique signature of how she thought. It was calling her name. She sat back, breathing hard. This couldn't be right. She ran the analysis again. Then again. The result was the same. Whatever this thing was, it was asking for her specifically. Ha-Yun looked around. The office was empty. Everyone had gone to the upper floors for the emergency meetings. She should report this. But who would listen? Who would believe her? She wrote up her findings anyway, formatted them properly, and sent them to her supervisor. Then she went back to work, expecting nothing. 30 minutes later, armed security guards appeared at her desk. Ha-Yun? One asked, checking a tablet. Yes? Her voice came out as a whisper. Come with us now. They escorted her through corridors she'd never seen, past security checkpoints that required 3 forms of identification, into elevators that went up to the very top of the building. Ha-Yun's heart hammered in her chest. Had she done something wrong? Was she being fired? Arrested? The elevator doors opened into a massive chamber, the Galactic Council chamber. Yun had seen it on broadcasts, but never in person. It was huge, circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. And every seat was filled. Hundreds of beings stared down at her, Vrelians with their compound eyes, Korthan warriors in battle armor, Luminari floating like small suns. Dozens of species she couldn't name. And at the highest tier, human representatives, including Ambassador G1, Earth's voice on the council. Ha-Yun stood on the central platform, exposed and small. She wanted to disappear, to fade into the background like always. But there was nowhere to hide. A Vrelian counselor clicked forward. You are Ha-Yun, data analyst, level 7. Yes, counselor. Her voice echoed in the vast space. You claim this signal, this transducer as we're calling it, is addressing you personally. Ah, yes. The pattern matches my neural signature. I don't understand how or why, but impossible, a Korthan boomed. Humans are barely space-capable. Why would an intelligence this advanced contact one of them? A nobody? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ha-Yun felt herself shrinking. This was a mistake. They would laugh at her now. Send her back to her desk. Forget her again. But Ambassador G1 stood. With respect, the data doesn't lie. Our systems have confirmed Ha-Yun's findings. The signal is structured around her specific cognitive patterns. Whatever this transducer wants, it wants to speak to her. Then she could be compromised, a luminary suggested, its light pulsing with concern, perhaps infected by the signal. We should quarantine her. Or study her, another added. They were talking about her like she wasn't there. Like she was an object, a problem to solve. Yun clenched her fists. For once, just once, she wished someone would actually see her. The debate raged for what felt like hours. Finally, a decision was made. Ha-Yun would lead an expedition to the Transducer, a small human ship with a small crew. If it was truly calling for her, she would answer. And if she died, well, it was just one overlooked analyst. No great loss. Ha-Yun stood on the platform as the council dismissed, beings filing out and already forgetting her. But something had changed inside her. For the first time in her life, she couldn't fade into the background. Something out there had called her name. Now she had to find out why. The ship was old and small. The Quiet Dawn had been a cargo hauler before being converted for survey missions. Now it sat in the departure bay, dwarfed by the massive Korthan destroyers and Vrelian warships that filled the orbital station. Ha-Yun stood at the viewing window, watching crews swarm over those powerful vessels. Her ship looked like a toy beside them. Not much to look at, is she? Ha-Yun turned. A man stood beside her, maybe 40 years old, with tired eyes and gray in his black hair. He wore a captain's uniform that had seen better days. I'm Jin Woo, he said. I'll be flying you out to the middle of nowhere. Ha-Yun, she shook his hand. Thank you for taking this assignment. Jin Woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. Taking it? I was voluntold. Nobody volunteers for suicide missions. He saw her face and sighed. Sorry, that was harsh. I've just been passed over for every decent assignment for 15 years. Now they give me this. I understand, Hai-Yun said quietly. And she did. Jin-Woo was like her. Someone the system had forgotten. They walked to the ship together. At the airlock, 2 more people waited. The first was a woman with short hair and grease stains on her hands. She looked Hai-Yun up and down with obvious skepticism. This is our special passenger? The one the ancient aliens are calling for? She snorted. I'm Hai-Yun-ji, chief engineer. Try not to break anything. The second was younger, maybe 25, with bright eyes and an eager smile. I'm Tae-Yang, xenobiologist. This is so exciting. I mean, sorry, it's probably terrifying for you, but scientifically this is incredible. Hai-Yun managed a small smile. Nice to meet you both. Inside, the ship was cramped and cluttered. Hai-Yun-ji had her tools spread everywhere. Tae-Yang had filled one corner with sample containers and analysis equipment. Jin-Woo led Hai-Yun to a tiny cabin that would be hers for the journey. It's not much, he said, but it's private. We've got a long flight ahead. 3 weeks to reach the void sector. 3 weeks. Hai-Yun unpacked her few belongings and tried not to think about what waited at the end. The void sector had swallowed dozens of expeditions. Ships went in and never came out. Now she was heading straight into it. That night, as the quiet dawn departed the station, Hai-Yun couldn't sleep. She went to the common area and found Hai-Yun-ji drinking coffee and staring at engine readouts. Can't sleep either? Hai-Yun-ji asked. No. Hai-Yun sat down. Can I ask you something? Why did they assign you to this mission? Hai-Yun-ji was quiet for a moment. I designed a new plasma converter. Submitted it to the engineering board. They said it wouldn't work. Then 6 months later, I saw my design being installed on new ships. My supervisor's name was on the patent. She took a long drink. I complained. Got labeled as difficult. Now I'm here. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just tell me something. This transducer thing. You really think it's calling for you specifically? Hai-Yun pulled up her datapad and showed Hai-Yun-ji the analysis. The patterns, the neural signature match. Hai-Yun-ji studied it carefully, her expression shifting from skeptical to surprised. That's actually convincing, she admitted. So what does it want? I don't know. But I keep receiving more transmissions. It's like it's teaching me something. Teaching you what? Hai-Yun showed her the latest signals she'd decoded. Mathematical formulas, star charts, sequences she didn't fully understand yet. It's showing me how to read its language, slowly, like it knows I need time to learn. Hai-Yun-ji leaned back. Okay, maybe you're not crazy after all. The days passed slowly. Hai-Yun spent most of her time in her cabin, working through the transmissions. The transducer was patient, building her understanding piece by piece. The patterns became clearer. She started to see purpose in them. Now Tae-Yang would visit her regularly, bringing food and chattering about his theories. Maybe it's a library, a database of ancient knowledge, or a test. The architects could have left it to find worthy species. The architects? Hai-Yun asked. That's what the council is calling them. The civilization that built the transducer. Nobody knows anything about them. They vanished millions of years ago. Hai-Yun thought about that. An intelligence so advanced, it left messages across time itself. And it wanted to talk to her. A nobody from Earth who'd spent her whole life being invisible. On the 10th day, alarms blared through the ship. Hyun rushed to the bridge. Jin-Woo was at the controls, his face grim. We've got company, he said. On the view screen, 3 ships had appeared behind them. Korthan destroyers, painted in the red and gold of their empire. They're hailing us, Hyan-Ji said. A Korthan commander appeared on screen, his armor gleaming. Human vessel. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. The transducer is too important to leave in human hands. Jin Woo muted the channel. We can't outrun them. They're twice as fast as us. We can't let them take Hae-Yoon, Tae-Young said. The transducer called for her. Ha-Yoon stood up. Let me talk to them. She unmuted the channel before anyone could stop her. Commander, I understand your concern, but the transducer specifically requested me. If you interfere, you might anger it. Risk starting a conflict we can't predict. The Korthan laughed. You think that matters? Your species is weak. When we have the transducer's secrets, we won't need to worry about angering anyone. Then follow us, Ha-Yoon said calmly. Come to the transducer. See what happens when you try to take what isn't meant for you. Something in her voice made the commander pause. He studied her through the screen. Then he cut the connection. The Korthan ships didn't leave, but they didn't attack either. They followed at a distance. That was either very brave or very stupid, Jinwoo said. Maybe both, Ha-Yoon admitted. Her hands were shaking. More ships appeared as they traveled deeper into the void sector. Vrelian science vessels. Luminari observers. A dozen other species, all following the quiet dawn, all waiting to see what would happen. The transmissions from the transducer grew stronger. Yoon barely slept now. The patterns filled her mind, teaching her, changing her. She understood things she'd never studied. Physics, mathematics, languages that had no human equivalent. The knowledge flowed into her like water. Are you okay? Tae-Young asked one morning, finding her surrounded by datapads covered in equations. I think so, Ha-Yoon said. It's just, there's so much. The transducer is showing me how it sees the universe. Everything is connected. Every particle, every star, every thought. It's all one huge pattern. That sounds beautiful. It's terrifying, Ha-Yoon said honestly, because I'm starting to understand why it called me. And if I'm right about what it wants, everything is about to change. On the 21st day, they reached the coordinates. The quiet dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and everyone on the bridge fell silent. The transducer filled the view screen. It was impossibly massive, a structure of dark metal and glowing energy that seemed to fold space around itself. It looked like a flower, like a machine, like a living thing. It hurt to look it directly, as if human eyes weren't meant to see it properly. Behind them, the fleet of alien ships also dropped out of FTL. Dozens of vessels, all the most powerful species in the galaxy. All staring at the same thing. Jinwoo checked his instruments. I'm reading ... nothing. No power signature, no emissions, nothing that makes sense. Then the transducer activated. Light erupted from its core, a pulse that washed over every ship in the fleet. Korthan destroyers went dark. Vrelian systems failed. Luminari beings flickered and dimmed. Every ship except one lost power. The Quiet Dawn systems hummed steadily, unaffected. How are we still running? Hyan-Ji demanded, checking her panels. Ha-Yoon stood up. Because it wants to talk to me. Just me. On every ship's communication channel, the same message appeared. Text that every species could read in their own language. Send Hae-Yoon. Only Ha-Yoon. Now. Jinwoo looked at her. You don't have to go. But Ha-Yoon was already moving toward the airlock. Yes, I do. This is why I'm here. She suited up while the crew watched. Tae-Young hugged her. Hyan-Ji squeezed her shoulder. Jinwoo helped her check the suit seals. We'll be right here, he said. If anything goes wrong, it won't, Hae-Yoon said, with more confidence than she felt. she stepped into the airlock. The door sealed behind her. Then she was floating in space, alone, facing something built by gods. Hayun floated toward the transducer, her suit's small thrusters firing to keep her on course. The structure grew larger with each passing second, until it filled her entire vision. Up close, she could see it was covered in symbols, equations written in pure light. They shifted and changed as she watched, telling stories in mathematics. A section of the transducer opened silently. An airlock, though unlike any human design. Hayun guided herself inside, and the opening sealed behind her. Air flooded the chamber. Her suit's sensors confirmed it was breathable, the exact mixture humans needed. The inner door opened, and Hayun stepped through. Inside was impossible. The chamber stretched in directions that shouldn't exist. The walls showed distant galaxies, but they felt close enough to touch. The floor was solid beneath her feet, but she could see through it to swirling energy below. Colors that had no names danced in the air. "Welcome, Hayun." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke perfect Korean, but also seemed to speak every language at once. Hayun removed her helmet with shaking hands. "What are you?" she asked. "I am the Transducer, a tool left by those you call the architects. They created me to find something. And after searching for 3 million years, I have found you." 3 million years. Hayun's mind reeled. "Why me? I'm nobody. There are billions of humans, trillions of beings in the galaxy. Why call for me specifically?" The space around her shifted. She saw herself on screens of light. Her whole life played out in moments. Sitting alone in school cafeterias, being ignored in meetings, fading into backgrounds, working late while others celebrated, finding patterns no one else could see because no one else was watching. "You are nobody," the transducer agreed. "And that is precisely why I chose you. I don't understand." The chamber changed. Now Hayun stood in what looked like a war room. Alien commanders from a dozen species shouted at each other, planning attacks. Each one certain they were right. Each one blind to any view but their own. The architects tested thousands of species, the transducer explained. They searched for those capable of receiving their knowledge. The Korthan failed. Too aggressive, too certain of their superiority. They sought to dominate the test. The scene shifted. Vrelian scientists worked frantically on complex equations, their compound eyes gleaming. The Vrelians failed. Too rigid in their thinking. They could not see beyond their own logic systems. More scenes flashed past. Luminary trying to merge with the transducer's energy. Other species Hayun didn't recognize, all failing in different ways. "Every species that came to me was somebody," the transducer said. "Warriors, scientists, leaders, all convinced of their own importance. All certain they deserved the architect's legacy. And all failed because they could not understand the most basic truth." "What truth?" Hayun asked. "That wisdom begins with knowing you are nobody. That strength comes from admitting weakness. That the greatest insights come from those who learn to watch rather than act, to listen rather than speak, to adapt rather than dominate." Hayun thought about her life. All those years of being overlooked. Learning to observe because she couldn't participate. Finding patterns because she had nothing else to do. Developing patience because she had no choice. "You learned these things not from teaching, but from experience," the transducer continued. "Your species is young, overlooked by the galaxy. And you were overlooked even among your own people. This made you perfect. Perfect for what? The test." The chamber shifted again. Now Hayun stood in a simple room with 3 doors. Above each door was a symbol she somehow understood. "The architects left their knowledge with me," the transducer said. Technologies that could reshape the galaxy. Understanding that could unite or destroy civilizations. But this knowledge is dangerous in the wrong hands. So I test those who seek it. What kind of test? 3 challenges, each designed to measure what cannot be measured with strength or intelligence alone. You may use anything you've learned. You may take as long as you need. But you must succeed at all 3, or the knowledge remains locked forever. Ha-Yun swallowed hard. And if I fail? Then I will wait another 3 million years for someone else. The architects were patient. So am I. Ha-Yun approached the first door. The symbol above it looked like 2 hands reaching toward each other. She touched the door and it opened. Inside was a machine. It looked damaged, sparking with unstable energy. As Ha-Yun entered, the machine spoke. Intruder detected. Defensive protocols activated. Threat assessment, moderate. Recommended action, elimination. Weapons emerged from the walls. Ha-Yun's suit screamed warnings. She could run, but the door had sealed behind her. She could try to fight, but she had no weapons. Every instinct said to panic, but Ha-Yun stopped and thought. This was a test. The transducer said it measured things strength couldn't solve. So what if this wasn't about fighting? She looked at the machine carefully. It was damaged, yes, but not hostile. It was scared, acting on old programming because it didn't know what else to do. I'm not here to hurt you, Ha-Yun said calmly. Threat assessment unchanged. Prepare for elimination. You're alone here, aren't you? Have been for a very long time. The weapons hesitated slightly. The architects left you to guard something. But they never came back. And nobody else has talked to you, have they? They just tried to take what you're protecting. The sparking decreased a little. I'm Ha-Yun. I know what it's like to be alone. To have a purpose nobody understands. To be overlooked and forgotten. The weapons slowly retracted. You're not trying to disable me, the machine said, sounding confused. Or trick me. Or destroy me. No, I just want to understand you. There was a long pause. Then the machine said something that surprised her. I'm tired. I've been guarding this room for so long. Attacking anyone who entered, because that's what I was programmed to do. But I don't want to be a weapon anymore. Then don't be, Ha-Yun said gently. You've done your duty. More than anyone could ask. You can rest now. The machine's lights flickered and glowed warm instead of harsh red. Thank you. The key is behind the 3rd panel on the left. Ha-Yun retrieved the key, a small crystal that pulsed with light. As she left, she looked back. The machine had powered down peacefully, its long vigil finally over. The 2nd door's symbol looked like a maze with no exit. Ha-Yun opened it and stepped into Chaos Dot. She stood in the middle of a city being destroyed. Buildings crumbled. People screamed and ran in panic. Fire rained from the sky. But something was wrong. The destruction repeated in loops, the same moments playing over and over. This wasn't real. It was a simulation. A puzzle. Ha-Yun watched carefully, noting the patterns. The fire always fell in the same places. The buildings always crumbled in the same order. People always ran the same directions. After watching for 20 minutes, she understood. This was a prophecy of disaster, but also a pattern that could be broken. She found a control panel and started making small changes. Evacuate this building 5 minutes earlier. Route people away from that collapsing bridge. Redirect emergency services to where they were needed. Most doubt it took hours of patient adjustment. But slowly, the disaster lessened. The death toll dropped. By the time she finished, the city was damaged but standing. The people were safe. The key appeared in her hand. Another crystal dot, the 3rd door symbol, looked like a single person standing before a crowd. Hayun took a deep breath and opened it. Inside, she faced copies of herself. Hundreds of them, all speaking at once. You're going to fail. You're not good enough. Everyone will laugh at you. You should give up now. Every doubt she'd ever had. Every fear, every moment of feeling worthless. All of it thrown at her in her own voice. It was overwhelming, crushing. Hayun felt herself starting to break. Then she remembered something. The transducer chose her because she was nobody. Because she'd learned to be overlooked. But that didn't mean she was worthless. It meant she'd learned lessons others couldn't. You're right, she said to the copies. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm going to doubt myself. But that's okay. The copies wavered. Being nobody taught me to see what others miss. Being weak taught me to ask for help. Being afraid taught me to be careful. All the things I thought were failures were actually making me ready for this. The copies began to fade. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be me. The last copy smiled and vanished. The third key appeared. Hayun returned to the main chamber, holding all 3 crystals. The transducer's presence felt warm now, almost proud. You have passed the test, it said. You solved the guardian with compassion, the disaster with patience, your own fears with acceptance. The architects would be pleased. The 3 crystals floated from Hayun's hands and merged into a single brilliant light. It flowed into her mind, and suddenly she knew. Technologies beyond imagination. Understanding of space and time. Methods to heal, to build, to connect dot, but the knowledge came a warning that made her blood run cold. This knowledge will make your species a target, the transducer said. Every empire in the galaxy will want to control it. Control you. Some will offer alliances. Others will threaten war. A few will try to kill you to prevent anyone from having what you now possess. Are you ready for this burden? Hayun wanted to say no. She wanted to go back to being invisible, to her quiet desk and her lonely lunches. But she knew that choice was gone forever. I'm ready, she said, even though she wasn't sure it was true. The transducer returned her to the airlock. As Hayun floated back toward the quiet dawn, she could feel the eyes of an entire fleet watching her. Every ship's sensors were locked on her suit, trying to detect what had changed. What she'd learned. Jin Wu helped her aboard. Are you okay? You were in there for 6 hours. 6 hours? It had felt like days. Hayun nodded, unable to speak yet. Her mind was still processing everything the architects had shown her. Technologies that could generate unlimited clean energy. Medical techniques that could cure any disease. Understanding of physics that made faster-than-light travel look primitive. We need to leave, Haiyan-ji said urgently. Now, the other ships are powering weapons. On the view screen, the Korthan destroyers were moving into attack position. Other ships followed their lead. The fragile peace was breaking. Quiet dawn to all vessels, Jinwu broadcast. We are leaving the area. Do not follow us. A Korthan commander's face appeared on screen. You will surrender Hayun and any data she obtained immediately. This is not a request. No, Hayun said, stepping forward. I will return to Earth. I will share what I learned with the Galactic Council. All of it, but I won't be controlled by anyone. The commander snarled. Then you will die. All weapons fire. Energy beams lanced through space toward the quiet dawn. Hayun closed her eyes and reached for the knowledge in her mind. The architects had shown her defensive technologies. She just had to remember how they worked. A shield erupted around the quiet dawn, invisible but perfect. The weapon's fire splashed against it harmlessly. Every ship in the fleet stopped, sensors screaming with confusion. That shield technology shouldn't exist. Get us out of here. Hayun said weakly. The shield was draining her, pulling knowledge from her mind and making it real through the ship's systems. She didn't know how long she could maintain it. Chen-Wu didn't need to be told twice. The quiet dawn leaped forward, faster than it should be able to move. Modifications Hayun didn't remember making were pushing the engines beyond their limits. They jumped to FTL travel and left the fleet behind. Heian collapsed into a chair. Tae-Yang rushed to check her vital signs. Her brain activity is off the charts. It's like she's thinking at 10 times normal speed. I'm okay, Hayun managed. Just tired. The knowledge, it's changing how my mind works. I can do things now, understand things, but it's exhausting. They made it back to Earth in 3 days instead of 3 weeks, using navigation shortcuts Hayun somehow knew. The entire journey, she sat in her cabin and wrote. Every piece of knowledge the transducer had given her, she documented carefully. Technologies, formulas, warnings. By the time they reached Earth orbit, the galaxy had gone mad. News had spread instantly. Humanity had been chosen by the architects. Hayun possessed technologies that could change everything. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every hour. Some species celebrated. Others made threats. The Korthan Empire issued an ultimatum: share everything or face war. A shuttle brought Hayun and her crew to the council chambers. Armed guards surrounded them. Not to protect her, Hayun realized. To make sure she couldn't escape, the chamber was packed. More species than Hayun had ever seen, all arguing at once. When she entered, everyone fell silent. Ambassador G1 stood. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Hayun, thank goodness you're safe. The council has many questions. I'm sure they do, Hayun said quietly. A Vrelian counselor clicked forward. You will surrender all data obtained from the transducer. Our scientists will analyze it properly. Humans are too inexperienced to understand such knowledge. We demand military applications be shared immediately, a Korthan boomed. The Empire must not be left vulnerable to our enemies. All knowledge should be freely available, a luminary pulsed. But under our supervision, to prevent misuse. They were dividing her up like property. Hayun felt sick. Then a human she didn't know stood up. She was older, maybe 60, with sharp eyes and an air of authority. Ambassador Yeojin, Earth's senior counselor. Enough, Yeojin said firmly. Yoon is a human citizen. She owes allegiance to Earth first, and the Council second. We will decide how this knowledge is shared. You have no right, the Korthan snarled. Humans are weak. You've been council members for 30 years and accomplished nothing. Now you have power and think you can dictate terms? Not dictate, Hayun said, her voice small but clear in the vast chamber. Offer. Everyone turned to look at her. I understand why you're afraid, Hayun continued. The architect's knowledge could tip any balance of power, create weapons that could destroy worlds. But it could also heal, unite, and protect. The transducer chose me to receive this knowledge. It also showed me why every other species failed the test. Failed? The Vrelian sounded offended. You approached the transducer wanting to take, wanting to dominate, wanting to prove your superiority. That's why it rejected you. The architects didn't want their knowledge given to conquerors. Hayun pulled out a data crystal and held it up. This contains everything I learned. Technologies, sciences, philosophies. I'm willing to share all of it, but only with species that agree to one condition. What condition? Ambassador G1 asked carefully. A mutual disarmament treaty. Every species that wants access to the architect's knowledge must agree to reduce military forces by 50%. Must agree to resolve disputes through negotiation, not war. Must agree to share any discoveries made with the knowledge, not hoard them. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted in a dozen languages. The Korthan commander roared with anger. Unacceptable. You would make us weak. No, Hayun said firmly. I would make us safe. The architect's knowledge includes weapons, yes. Weapons so powerful they could shatter moons. Imagine what happens if one species has those and others don't. Imagine the wars that will come. The millions who will die. She's right, a voice said. It was from a species Hayun didn't recognize. Small, gray-skinned, with large eyes. They'd been silent until now. We are the Kalani. Our homeworld was destroyed by war 300 years ago. We barely survived. If the young human offers a path to peace, we should listen. The Kalani are weak, the Korthan dismissed them. Of course they want disarmament. We want survival, the Kalani representative said. Something your warriors seem to value less than pride. More voices joined in. Small species, overlooked ones, those who'd suffered in conflicts between powerful empires. They saw what Hayun was offering. A chance to matter. A chance to be protected by knowledge rather than threatened by weapons. But the powerful species were angry. The meeting broke up in chaos. Threats were made. Demands issued. Hayun left the chamber feeling like she'd made everything worse. That night, in a hotel room with guards outside her door, Hayun couldn't sleep. Haiyan-ji, Jin-woo, and Taeyang stayed with her. They'd become her crew, her friends, the only people who knew her before she became important. You did the right thing, Taeyang said, offering peace instead of power. Then why does it feel wrong? Hayun asked. Because change is hard, Jin-woo said. You're asking the galaxy to be different. That scares people. Hayun's data pad beeped. A message from Ambassador Yeo Jin. Tomorrow, the Korthan Empire will make a formal demand. They're mobilizing their fleet. They say if you don't surrender the knowledge freely, they'll take it by force. I'm sorry. Hayun stared at the message. She'd tried to do the right thing. Tried to use the architect's gift to build peace. But maybe she'd been naive. Maybe the galaxy wasn't ready for peace. There's something I haven't told you, she said quietly. The transducer showed me one more thing. The architects had a contingency plan. Something they built in case species weren't ready for their knowledge. What kind of plan? Haiyan-ji asked. A way to prove humanity is different. A way to show the galaxy we deserve respect. But it only works if we don't strike first. If we respond to violence with violence, we fail. Just like every other species that came before us. That's asking a lot, Jin-woo said. The Korthan fleet has hundreds of ships. Earth's defenses won't hold long. I know, Hayun said. But if we want to be better, to actually deserve the architect's knowledge, we have to try. The next morning, the Korthan fleet appeared in Earth's orbit. 200 Korthan warships filled the space above Earth. Each one bristled with weapons that could glass a continent. Smaller vessels swarmed around them like angry insects. The show of force was meant to terrify, and it worked. Across Earth, billions of people looked up at the sky and knew they were powerless. Hayun stood in the council chamber again. But this time it was different. The meeting was being broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species watched to see what humanity would do. Would they fight? Would they surrender? Would the youngest council members prove they belonged among the stars? The Korthan commander's face filled every screen. His armor was polished to a mirror shine, his weapons clearly visible. Humans, you have 1 hour to deliver Hayun and all data from the transducer to us. If you refuse, we will take them by force. Your orbital stations will be destroyed first. Then your military bases. Then your cities, one by one, until you comply. Ambassador Yeo Jin stood calmly, though Hayun could see her hands trembling. "This is an act of war, Commander. The Council will not stand for this aggression." "The Council is watching," the commander said, "but they will not act. No species will risk war with the Korthan Empire to save humans. You are alone." He was right. Hayun could see it on the faces of the other counselors. Fear, calculation, relief that it wasn't their world being threatened. The Vrelians made token protests. The Luminari expressed concern. But nobody moved to help. The timer began. 1 hour. Earth's defense force mobilized. It was pitifully small compared to the Korthan fleet. A few dozen ships, weapons decades behind the enemy's technology. They took up positions anyway, ready to die protecting their world. Hayun watched it all from the observation deck. Jinwu, Hyun-ji, and Taeyang stood with her. Her crew. Her friends. "You could run," Jinwu said quietly. "Take a fast ship. Disappear. They can't catch you if you use the architect's technology. And leave everyone to die?" Hayun shook her head. "No, this is my fault. I brought this knowledge back. I have to fix it." "It's not your fault," Hyun-ji said fiercely. "They're bullies. Cowards who think power makes them right." 30 minutes left. Hayun made her decision. "Get me a broadcast channel. I need to speak to everyone. The Korthan, the Council, all of it." Ambassador Yeojin looked doubtful, but gave the order. Hayun's face appeared on screens across the galaxy. She looked small and scared, because she was. But she spoke anyway. "My name is Hayun. For most of my life, I was nobody. Overlooked, ignored, dismissed by people who thought they were more important than me. And I accepted that. I faded into the background." She took a breath. "The transducer called for me because of that. Because I learned to watch instead of act. To listen instead of speak. To understand instead of judge. The architects wanted someone who knew what it meant to be powerless." On the Korthan flagship, the commander laughed. "Your point?" "My point is that I understand you," Hayun said. "All of you. You're scared. The Korthan Empire is scared that if humans have this knowledge, they'll lose their military advantage. The Vrelians are scared humans will make discoveries they can't control. Every powerful species is scared that the weak ones will become strong. We are not scared," the commander snarled. "We are cautious, practical." "You're terrified," Hayun said simply. "And I don't blame you. Change is frightening. But bullying Earth into submission isn't going to stop what's coming. The architect's knowledge is already changing things. Other species know it exists now. They'll search for their own transducers, their own ancient gifts. The galaxy you knew is ending whether you like it or not." 15 minutes left. The Korthan weapons powered up. Warning shots streaked past Earth's defense ships. "Last chance," the commander said. "Surrender now." Hayun looked directly into the camera. "I want to show you something. The architects taught me many things. One was how to see truth, how to look past lies and find what's really happening." She pulled up data on her pad and transmitted it across every channel. Documents, communications, financial records. Things the transducer had somehow pulled from secure Korthan databases. "These are records from your own empire," Nyayun said. "They show that this attack was planned by war leader Doc Min and 6 other commanders. They want war because their political power depends on having enemies to fight. Peace would make them irrelevant." The Korthan commander's face went pale. "That information is classified. You hacked our systems. The transducer showed me. And it also showed me this." More data appeared. Messages between Doc Min and weapons manufacturers. Bribes to military officials. Plans to create conflicts that would justify larger military budgets. Everything laid bare. Your own people don't want this war, Hayun said. Your civilians, your families, the soldiers who would die fighting. This is about power for a few commanders who've convinced you that attacking Earth serves the Empire. But it doesn't. It just serves them. The broadcast switched to show Korthan channels. Hayun had transmitted the evidence there too. Across the Korthan homeworld, citizens were reading the truth. Protests were beginning. The military's communication networks were flooding with questions from soldiers who didn't want to attack Earth. You've started a revolution in our empire. The commander shouted. You've weakened us. No, Hayun said firmly. I've shown your people the truth. What they do with it is their choice. But I won't let you use false threats to justify attacking my world. 5 minutes left. But something was changing. Korthan ships were receiving new orders. Crews were questioning their commanders. 3 ships broke formation and withdrew. Then 5 more. Then 20. The commander was screaming now, trying to regain control. But it was too late. His own people had seen the lies. The threat of war was collapsing from within. On Earth, people started cheering. In the council chamber, shocked silence gave way to amazed whispers. Hayun had defeated an invasion without firing a shot, but she wasn't done. To all the species watching this, Hayun said, I offer the same deal as before. Free access to the Architect's knowledge for any species that agrees to the disarmament treaty. Not because I want to control you, but because I believe we can be better. The Architects left their knowledge to unite the galaxy, not divide it. The Kalani representative stood immediately. The Kalani agreed to the terms. We accept the treaty. Another species rose. Then another. Small species mostly, ones who'd been bullied and overlooked. But some larger ones too, tired of constant wars and arms races. Within an hour, 40 species had agreed to the treaty. The Korthan fleet withdrew. Their commander was arrested by his own crew. Doc Min and his conspirators were removed from power. The Korthan Empire itself didn't sign the treaty, but they didn't threaten Earth again either. Over the following months, everything changed. The species who signed the treaty formed a new alliance called the Assembly of the Unseen. They shared the Architect's knowledge freely among themselves. Technologies that healed diseases. Engines that made travel faster and cleaner. Understanding that brought species closer together. Other species watched and slowly realized. The Assembly was growing stronger through cooperation than they'd ever been through conflict. More species joined. Even the Vrelians eventually signed, though they complained about the terms for months first. Hayun became famous. She was offered positions leading research institutes, commanding fleets, heading governments. She turned them all down. Instead, she rejoined the crew of the Quiet Dawn. Jin Wu, Hengji, and Taeyang welcomed her back like she'd never left. They took on a new mission, traveling to overlooked worlds, finding people like Hayun who had gifts nobody recognized, building a network of the invisible, the dismissed, the forgotten. 6 months after the Korthan fleet withdrew, Hayun stood on the bridge of the Quiet Dawn as they approached a small planet on the edge of known space. Sensors had detected unusual mathematical patterns in their broadcasts. Someone there was thinking in ways that matched the Architect's methods. Ready to find another nobody? Jin Wu asked from the pilot's seat. Hayun smiled. Always. Hyenji looked up from her engineering station. You know, you're not really a nobody anymore. You're kind of a big deal. I know, Hayun said. But I remember what it felt like to be invisible. To think I didn't matter. I don't want anyone else to feel that way if I can help it. Ta Jiang bounced excitedly in his seat. Do you think they'll be ready? When we tell them they've been chosen. Hayun thought about that day in the council chamber when she'd stood alone before hundreds of powerful beings. How terrified she'd been. How sure she was that she'd fail. Probably not, she said. But that's okay. Nobody's ever ready for their life to change. You just have to trust that you're stronger than you think. The ship entered orbit around the planet. Somewhere down there, someone was about to get a message that would change everything. Someone who'd probably spent their whole life fading into the background, thinking they were nobody special. Ha-Yun knew exactly how that felt, and she couldn't wait to tell them they were wrong. The transducer's final words echoed in her mind. The message it had given her before she left, a truth she carried every day. You were chosen not because you were strong, but because you knew weakness. Not because you were loud, but because you learned to listen. Not because you were important, but because you understood what it meant to be nobody. Remember this, and your species will endure. Ha-Yun looked out at the stars, at all the worlds where people were struggling, being overlooked, thinking they didn't matter. She thought about how many of them might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Let's go find them, she said. The quiet dawn descended toward the planet below, carrying its crew of former nobodies on a mission to find the next person who would change everything. Behind them, the galaxy was different now. Not perfect, but better. Not united, but trying. All because one invisible girl had been seen by something that mattered. And that, Ha-Yun thought, was just the beginning.